6 months into leading this team, I realized something uncomfortable. You can be good at ministry, but that does not automatically mean that you're good at leading people. In this video, I want to share with you the mistakes I've made in my first 6 months in leadership in the new position that I have, and some things that I would definitely be doing differently. Welcome everybody to the Hybrid Ministry Show. Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Hybrid Ministry Show. If you haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name is Nick Clayson, and this podcast exists primarily to talk about digital ministry and making discipleship online just a little bit easier. But in this episode, I want to talk about a major shift that's actually happened in my life, and this might actually be one of the more emotional or even like real episodes because I moved here 3 years ago to work for a guy, one of my great friends. His name is Darren, and he was an amazing boss, best boss I ever had. Now, listen, let's be honest, there's always times where I felt like I could do something better or different, but I had really learned to love and kind of settle into my role, getting things done and being a worker for him. And one of the things I loved about Darren too is that he believed in me and he trusted me and he gave me a lot of leash to make major student ministry decisions. And so I didn't feel like I was just his right-hand man or his minion, but I really felt like I got a good opportunity at leadership. Fast forward to about 6 months ago, he chose to step away and move to a different church. And in that transition, church very honorably and lovingly came to me and said, "You're our number one choice. You're our guy. Do you want his job?" And it was like a no-brainer. I was like, absolutely. And in the time, you got to understand, he had been doing a second job at our church as the pastor of staff development. And so during that season, I assumed and took on quite a bit of leadership opportunities. And so I figured this wouldn't be that big a deal. All that was really going to happen was I was going to move to his old office, and then I was just going to keep kind of doing what I was doing. But man, oh man, was I wrong. Man, was there so many changes and so many differences assuming that new leadership hat and that new leadership seat. And in this episode, I want to talk through 3 things that I've learned, what I thought, what happened, what I did, and what the actual learning is out of that. So let's dive in to the first leadership mistake. So mistake number 1 is that the time battle was lost. But in a lot of cases, for me, the time battle was lost by someone else. And here's what I thought. I thought, I'm the boss, I'm the supervisor, I'm the manager. Now I get to not only make the decisions, but I get to help oversee people and point them in the right direction. And in some cases, in the ugliest parts of my heart, I get to tell them what to do. But here's what happened is that I was expecting to still do all of the same work that I was doing before, or all the same work that was at least desired by me to do before. For example, continuing on this side hustle podcast that I don't get a lot of revenue or money from. But one way that you could really help, hit that like or subscribe button down below. That would really make a huge difference. But while then adding in anywhere from 5 to 8 new meetings per month. Let me just give you an example. Last week, I was expected to sit down with a future potential residency candidate. I had done that before. That wasn't that big a deal. Darren gave me a lot of opportunities to do stuff like that. And I was getting ready to leave town that day. And so my day was mapped out. I was doing some podcast stuff. I was doing some social media stuff for our ministry. And I had a couple meetings to kind of end my day at like 1 to 2 and then 2 to 3. And then someone said, "Hey, we have to have a recap meeting for this big winter retreat event that you just had." We had already had a meeting. Me and the person in the meeting had already discussed it, but they're like, "Well, no, we have to have it in this way with these people." And so I was like, well, if we want to have it before I leave town, we got to do it now. So another meeting gets stacked on to the end of my day. And I'm not a big meeting guy. Like I don't mind them, but they don't bring me a lot of energy. I would rather do the work decided in the meeting than have a meeting where we sit down and think and talk about work. And so what I've learned is that the promotion often just means that more people have certain demands on my time. And so the advice I would give, if you've never checked it out, check out Time Boss. It was created by a guy named Andrew, and Andrew actually used to be on staff over at Download Youth Ministry, but now he stepped away from DYM to go work on Time Boss full time. And I'm not joking when I tell you that when I implement and institute the principles that I've learned from Time Boss, I am an absolute master of my time, especially when you're in a situation like I am in now, where other people are dictating my calendar and other people are telling me meetings that I have to go to that I don't get to say to avoid or not be a part of. And so if you choose to manage your time, then when other people step in and give you required meetings, you can either let them manage your time or you can manage your time before they come to you. The choice is yours, but that's one of the things I've had to become a master and a boss of my time. Mistake number 2 is that you can't communicate without communicating. I feel like my wife, right, in this new season of life, because what I thought was that when I communicated something, people understood the full picture of what I was saying. But what I've learned is that people can't actually read my mind. I can communicate, but just because I've said words doesn't mean that they're understanding it the exact same way that I'm thinking that they're understanding it. And so people did, in fact, not read my mind. Like, let me give you an example. I delegated a task where I required us to get 3 clips out of Opus AI, which is an amazing tool for your social media. You can check out the link down below if you're interested in that. It literally saves me and our team hundreds of hours a week. But I would save 3 Opus clips per week out of each of our messages. Well, when I asked someone to do Opus clips, they started saving 2 instead of 3. Small miscommunication, but one that I then had a decision to make when I went in and I noticed that there weren't enough. Do I say something or do I let it go, right? Or, hey, this is what the expected word count needs to be when you get in front of a camera. And when they come in and there's more words than what were expected, I had to say, well, here's why the word count matters from time standpoint on YouTube and all these types of things. Or when I said, hey, I would like all of these events to be planned during the day, and I come back and my team had made one event plan to be happening at night in the evening. Again, not a big deal, but we just had to come around and I had said something and they didn't think it was that big of a deal, or they didn't listen to it, or they chose to override it, or whatever the reason might be. Or when I said, hey, let's get some hot chocolate for this event, and I go to the back and I see my resident and my intern making hot chocolate using the hot water from a small tea kettle, trying to fill it up in a 5-gallon water jug bucket. Like, that's just not going to cut it. It's not fast enough, and there's a million other ways to get to it. But so when I said make hot chocolate, I thought this was the assumed path to make hot chocolate in our youth ministry, at our church, in our space. They heard make hot chocolate, and to their credit, they were resourceful to figure out a way to do it, but to their disadvantage, they were using something that was incredibly slow, and the event had already started, and they were stuck in the back still making hot chocolate because the tea kettle wasn't keeping up. What I've learned is that I have to over communicate. And when I think I've communicated 100% of it, I've maybe only effectively communicated 60% of it. I was talking to a friend of mine. He's a youth volunteer for me. He owns his own business. And I was talking to him about this, and he said, this happens to me all the time. And so it made me really frustrated, to be completely honest, because I would say things, I would communicate things, I'd write them down, I'd put them in tasks, and only a certain percentage of the task was getting completed or adhered to or listened to. And he just said, this is a very normal thing with people who are working for you. So my advice, especially to myself and to you, I'm a perfectionist. I'm an Enneagram 1. Don't expect perfection. Be able to roll with the punches and continue to circle back and over-communicate and over-communicate. Mistake number 3, and this one might be the toughest one, honestly, is that I feel like I lost some of my passion for youth ministry. And here's what I thought. I thought I'm going to step into this new role and I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And while I'm doing what I'm doing, I now get to be in charge. How great is that? What happened was I shifted from more of a doer of the ministry to more of a manager. So last fall, for example, I had fully handed off programming to one of my associates. He was in charge of all programming, like service orders, all that type of stuff. And then another couple people on our team were in charge of a Friendsgiving for the community like outreach event drive, like a canned food drive kind of thing that we were pulling together in our student ministry. And then one person was in charge of the Friendsgiving event that we had, and they had to then collaborate and work together. And then 2 other people were in charge of our costume party. And so I remember stepping back and thinking to myself, the only thing I'm doing here is managing these people. They're the ones that are like fully running, planning, executing, and making these events all have traction, getting off the ground, and everything that needed to happen in these event spaces. And I found myself like a little bit sitting around kind of like twiddling my thumbs, being like, what am I supposed to do? What I learned is and I already knew this about myself, but what I learned was I found myself in my working frustration, as Patrick Lencioni talks about it. He has a working widget with 6 different wheels, and I determined and discovered that my strength was invention and tenacity. And I knew that my frustration was enablement and galvanizing. So kind of rah-rahing, cheerleading the team and helping make them like get excited around an idea. And so I'd shifted out of my strength, invention, creating something out of wonder and tenacity, bringing that invention across the finish line, and then handing that over to my team and trying to encourage them to bring it across the finish line. And when they're having a tough time getting across the finish line, they're having a tough time articulating their ideas, I was also having an equally tough time because I was feeling like I wasn't successfully getting those things accomplished and across the finish line. So the advice, I took something back that I loved. I took back programming. I was like, I need to do something in this job where I get to invent and I get to take it across the finish line. Because if not, I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to watch all of you guys do it. And part of my job is development, and I don't mind it, but it does shift me away from a passion point into something that I don't get to do as much. And I felt really bad and I felt really guilty for doing it. But I mean, here's the thing, like, I love programming and I love creating something. In fact, I love it so much, I have a podcast dedicated to creative programming. It's a weekly bonus podcast, and I just walk you through what our youth ministry does every single week. I'd love for you to take a look at it. There's a 7-day free trial link down below. It's called the Hybrid Heroes. It's part of a Patreon membership tier, and you get a weekly bonus podcast every single Monday morning that details, recaps, and outlines our last week of social media and our last week of creative programming. In addition to that, everything I put on my store that costs money. It costs money to other people, but it's free to Hybrid Heroes. So $4 a month is less than the cost of a cup of coffee. It's $48 per year. If you have like a professional or personal development budget line, like you can charge it to that. If you don't feel comfortable doing that or don't have enough money for that, get 1 cup of coffee from your office, from home, and then skip Starbucks for just one time, and it will cover the cost of that. But that's what I did, and I'm just going to be completely honest for you. This last season has been a really hard season for me. I was confused by it because I thought I knew what I was doing. I've been in youth ministry for a long time already, but growth doesn't happen when you're coasting, right? And no matter what you're doing and no matter what area you're growing in and learning in, whether it's growing in management skills like I am or whether it's trying to grow in areas like social media, when you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, it can feel difficult, right? But the only way to get to the other side, the only way to truly experience growth is to go through it. So stick with it, rooting you on, encouraging you. Don't forget, my friends, and as always, stay hybrid.